All right, guys, welcome back. Who's Coming Pairs, the All-Star edition, as we are doing this while the All-Star game is going on. As we kind of just got through the Paul Skeens inning, which I think was really good for baseball that he got the ball tonight. We're here at the All-Star break, so what do we got to talk about with that? Who should be there? That's not there. I think that's a good place to start. What do you think? What do you think in terms of maybe some snub action?
It honestly, like between fan voting and then obviously the coaches and players voting for the reserves and the final spots, I think that the majority was fairly like bullseye dead on.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of young guys there. I think it's probably one of the younger All Star games that we've ever seen before. One of the younger All Star teams. Lots of first timers as well. But yeah, I really think that they hit it right on the head. There's not a lot of guys on that list that don't deserve it, but there is there is one that I can think of who is a legitimate snub, and the guy he would be replacing is very easy. It like sticks out like a sore thumb. I'm really disappointed that Christian Walker was left off the team. Considering the numbers that he put up offensively, and then he's still performing at such a high level when it comes to his defense. I looked at some defensive metrics today as well, and he is probably the best defensive first baseman in baseball. Um, he's got 41 extra base hits, 66 RBIs. He's got over an 800 OPS. Easily should have that spot over Pete Alonso. There's no way Pete Alonso should be in that game. I think part of the reason why he's there is because of the home run prowess. But Walker's got more bombs than him. Walker's got more production. He's a head above him on defense. I think that might have been the New York influence on that particular spot. And then the other one that is, I wouldn't call it fairly obvious, but I think it was another kind of New York bias. I think that either Kenley Jansen or Craig Kimbrell is deserving over Clay Holmes, who's having a really nice season. But those two guys, in particular, Jansen's about a run better on his ERA, um, quite a bit better on his WHIP, has just as many saves, striking out just as many guys, and is on just as good a team. So I think kind of the two New York guys were guys who probably could have taken a pass on and put in one of those nicer relievers, and then Christian Walker in replace of Alonso. Brent Rooker's another guy too, but I think Walker to me is a bigger snub. I can't see a guy on the NL or AL roster that Rooker should replace.
I think Rooker's there now after the injuries, so he may have gotten the nod.
I didn't see him.
I guess we'll see maybe deeper in the game. I have no idea. I didn't see them do the intros, so I can't say I know exactly who's there today.
Yeah.
But you know what? From the stance of, I guess we'll kind of debate a little bit. First base is so hard. I feel like there's so
Mhm.
many good first basemen, so I feel like you're always going to have a snub or two at first base. I mean, Freddie Freeman's going to be there. The Mets are surging, so you do get a little bit of New York bias because more people want to see, a team that's doing well. Arizona kind of struggled out of the gates. But without a doubt, Christian Walker is one of the best defensive first basemen. He kind of showed that last year in the postseason with his prowess there when he was kind of getting in the spotlight. So yeah, I don't disagree with that. Um, the closers are tough because Clay Holmes started out so well, and that kind of puts you ahead of the curve in terms of like who people are going to be interested in seeing. He's struggled lately. His last 4 or 5 outings, he's kind of let up a run every time and been iffy. And Kimbrel, if you remember in April, was like getting booed out of town every time he come in the game. He was
Mhm.
blowing the save essentially. So I think that kind of the taste of that kind of stuck around. He's figured it out because he's a veteran closer. He knows how to do it. And same for Kenley Jansen. Like he's just been very consistent. But Clay Holmes is I would say, popular pick, and he kind of won that in April and May more so
Yeah.
than as of late. But Yeah, it's also a late All-Star game. So
Hmm.
I feel like we have more of a sample size now, whereas normally it's kind of already decided. Um,
Right. Jansen, to me, Jansen really has come on in the last few months as the Red Sox have kind of come along
yeah,
and really uh, closed the gap between the haves and have-nots in the
yeah,
division. They're only 4.5 behind first place Baltimore and 3.5 behind the second place Yankees. They're playing better baseball than anybody
yeah,
since the month of May, which is really kind of not on everyone's radar. The Red Sox, the starting pitching going into the season was kind of a question, and then right out of the gate, they were blistering hot,
they were.
best rotation in baseball, and then their offense was kind of a up in the air. We weren't sure what we were going to get from that. Lose Trevor Story early, but certain players have emerged, and they're quite a fun, productive all around team, and
Yeah.
it's been cool to see them close the gap a little bit in that division. Obviously, it's good for us because we're fans, but the Red Sox franchise is one of the most storied in baseball, and it's good to see them kind of coming on, and it's good to see some of their players in the game too.
Yeah. I would say for me, the only snub, and this might sound a little bizarre that I'm saying the person I'm saying, um, defensive metrics are off the chart. He's hitting 280. He steals a lot of bases. But yeah, he's one of the highest rate, and he probably will win the Gold Glove at this position, even though we have another good one
I
in the
know what you
division.
got. Yeah,
Bryce Terang
yeah.
should be at the All Star game. I know Ketel Marte is a good hitter, and I'm not even saying starting. He should be there in general. I think the
Yeah.
Brewers, for as well of a start as they've had, are underrepresented, which is
Hmm.
again weird for me to say, but yeah, they've had a lot of better. They've had better players than they're represented at the All Star game, more than Contreras and Yelich, and those are
Hmm.
kind of just more to the outliers. Yeah, he should be there. Like I say, defensively, the metrics
Yeah.
check out that he is the best second baseman
Hmm.
defensively in baseball. So,
Right,
you got those
and
as
the
players.
offensive metrics check out as well.
Yeah.
He
Yep.
has been a very big reason for their success. He's one of those do everything kind of guys. He's flashed the power this year, and yeah, his defense goes without saying. He's got platinum glove type energy. So yeah, that is a bit surprising, and I didn't even think about him, but I was looking at different metrics earlier today, defensive metrics, offensive metrics, and you see Terang's name pop up, and it's like, huh, that's almost like MVP candidate metric type deal. I mean,
Yeah.
wins above replacement, not that it's our favorite stat, but he's very high on that list when it comes to not just the NL, but all of baseball.
Again, I don't know, and the reason why I don't like it is because it's not an exact stat, and I don't know how it really weighs in terms of your defense. But you certainly can take many runs away with the glove. So if it
Yeah,
weighs heavier in that direction, I could see that for sure. Um,
yeah.
so I have one. I guess I can go first on this one. Anyone who's there for the first time, that was just really deserving. And this is a guy that I think he's finally coming full circle on his potential. Jaron Duran, I think, was so
Yeah.
deserving of the nod. Not that that's even a homer pick. I mean, he just came out of the gates on fire, and he does everything. He's really fast. He hits for power. He has those five tools they talk, but it's more than that. I think he's just a guy that kind of came up, was overlooked, and now he's finally getting his due. And it was cool to see him just get in on the initial wave and not an injury sub. That he actually deserves to be there.
Yeah, Duran is a very high guy on my list as well. Like you were saying, he can do everything extremely well. Insanely athletic, insanely fast. His biggest, I guess, knock, or I would say two of his biggest knocks. One was the ability to stay healthy. He plays the game very hard, and that can take a toll on your body. But the other big thing was his defensive prowess.
Yes.
While being very athletic, there were just times last year where he looked lost in the outfield. He'd take a bad route to the ball. He'd lose the ball. It's like, man, this guy is way too good to be making these kind of mistakes. And he really took that I guess the criticism to heart. He worked his tail off in the offseason, and he has become one of the best outfielders in this game.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the deep defensive metrics show, but he passes the eye test, and you are getting compliments around baseball about how good this guy has become. So yeah, for me, he's for sure high on the list. I have another guy in mind because I don't want to steal yours, but yeah, he's for sure at the top of my list, and also a guy who should be considered in MVP voting too. He's got over 20 doubles. He's got 10 triples. He's got 10 homers. He's got 20 plus stolen bases. He's stolen home multiple times. Very, very good player. But my guy is another fellow Red Sox first timer, Tanner Houck. Tanner Houck has been the ace of this rotation after being a guy they were just kind of not really sure what he was going to be. Drafted him in the first round out of Mizzou. Had nasty stuff. Has always had nasty stuff, but has had a hard time kind of honing in on what he's going to be and the stuff in general. Started out as a starter, has had really good stretches as a reliever. Thought he could potentially be a closer, but really kind of came out of the gates starting this season, and he's been on fire and it hasn't stopped, and it's led to his first appearance as an All-Star, and it's much deserved. It's great to see. I'm sure the fans in Boston are ecstatic for these two young guys, and yeah, I'm hoping that he gets in the game tonight and that he builds on the performance in the second half.
I remember it was 2 or 3 years ago when he first started pitching. You had just gotten access to the MLB network, and I stole your password. Don't tell anybody. It's in the past. We don't need to talk about it. But you're like, this guy's pitching. You should watch. And I think we texted at the same time, like, he looks like Chris Sale. Just the way the ball was coming out of his hand, the way his arm slot was. And then all of a sudden he's got a 6 ERA, and we're like, how the heck did that happen? Because his stuff was electric. The Red Sox were out of it. The game didn't matter, but he was just electric. And yeah, it's cool to see again that come full circle, and yeah, just a cool moment. Yeah, he's very, very deserving. Alex Cora did a good job also introducing him, so that was cool.
For sure.
This is another point, just in terms of like comparing like different All-Star games. Baseball is probably the best game for an All-Star game because you can't fake baseball. NBA, it's like a crappy version of a normal basketball game. Football, no one's tackling each other, but like,
hockey, it's 20-20.
Yeah, no one. I mean, it's the 3-on-3 game now, and they're playing like half court ice, whatever it is. But like baseball, like Paul Skeen's first inning is throwing 100 miles an hour still. And guess what? You still got to hit it as a hitter. You may not be busting it around second, to score. Like, oh, I'm gonna like burn it to get home. But these guys have to try. These pitchers are gonna throw as hard as they can. Most of them are only going to be here 1 or 2 times. Actually, Tanner Houck is in the game right now. So there you go.
Yep.
But it's the truest, purest form of the game. It doesn't mean anything right now, which is fine, but it's just probably the best All-Star game. Home Run Derby, on the other hand, sometimes can be a bit of a slog. Last night's went over 3 hours, which is just a little unbearable. But silver lining, the new format I actually didn't mind. Last night they gave him a 2.5-minute time frame again, but they only gave him 40 pitches. So if you burn through those 40 pitches before the 2.5 minutes up, your time's up, you're done. They gave him a little bonus action, like 3 out, like it used to be the 10 out format. So they gave him 3 outs, plus if they hit a ball over 425, they gave him a bonus 4th out. But that was, they can take as many pitches as they want, a little slower pace. So it was a little mix of past and present. But the best part was that you had a final that included Bobby Witt.
Yeah.
So you got a lot of people introduced to Bobby Witt. You had Alec Boehm, which I'm sure you saw him going off. He's like, oh, who would have thunk that I was here? No one, I had 11 homers in the first half, but here I am. But congratulations to Teoscar Hernandez, who was essentially, I think he figured it out. Dude was taking a softball swing, putting his entire weight into every ball. Looked nothing like a baseball swing. But congratulations to him. And also, basically, it going down to the wire, and the last ball Bobby Witt hit that could have tied it, hit off the wall. So you can't really ask for more than that in terms of drama. But the biggest point, I know, again, I didn't watch the whole thing. It's a slog. If you stuck in there, you got to see one of the best young hitters in baseball hit for 3 hours, which is kind of cool.
Hmm.
And again, you put Bobby Witt on the stage. And also James Russell, remember James Russell, was
Yeah,
pitching to him because that is his
really.
brother-in-law. So that
Okay.
was cool because
You know,
I heard,
I did know that. He's
yeah,
got a couple sisters who they have baseball husbands.
yeah.
Um,
But still, that was a name. I was like, James Russell, man, the Cubs just used and abused that guy.
right.
Good reliever for about 2 years, but yeah, then he just got absolutely torched. So, but
Yeah.
it was cool to see him kind of, pitch a couple rounds of BP. Still had a little bit of the long hair going. But yeah, that was, again, fun event if you watch the whole thing. But a bit of a slog. It's
Yeah.
long and tedious and repetitive.
And we'll see. I mean, baseball. They're trying to do things to keep it exciting and draw new fans and fun fan and yeah, more fans to the game. Um, I agree with you. It is good to see Bobby Witt there. He kind of a little homecoming for him, being a
Yeah.
Texas guy. Being that's where he grew up. Um, great to see that. I would be pretty interested to see. So I saw a clip on social media the other day about how baseball used to do like a skills competition, and one of the skills I saw was like it was Benito Santiago, and he's on the
Yeah.
Giants. He was throwing ropes down to second base at a target. You're trying to hit it through the target. So it'd be kind of cool to see if baseball could come up with some kind of like skills competition, maybe if it's worth
Yeah.
it. I don't know if they'd be interested in doing anything like that, but it'd be interesting to see.
I mean, the biggest thing with that is you don't want anyone to throw their arm out trying to do something
No.
extreme, right? But I mean, I would argue taking, 40, 80, 120 swings at full strength is
Yeah,
pretty
150
damaging.
daddy hacks.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude. Daddy
So,
hacks all day.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there's no good way, but yeah, something else to kind of showcase what these guys can do.
Right.
But maybe it just is what it is, and people aren't going to watch it anymore. Like the NHL skills competition, I feel like has kind of turned into a joke. Those
Yeah.
guys don't really care anymore. Same with the NBA one, and the dunk contest is a bit of a joke. So yeah, it's hard to stretch it out. But I think they want to grow the game. They want to make it more interesting. So
Yeah. Well, where they can start is bringing back teams wearing their own jerseys at the game, which sounds like Manfred wants to do
that I agree
after
with.
getting
Yeah.
set. I think that'd be really cool to do.
Yeah, it's for the point. Because again, they have these all-star jerseys. I get it. Wear them in the home run derby. That's fine. But like half the time, you don't even know what team these guys play for. They're wearing
No.
and like yeah, the hat designates it a little bit, but like you want to see them in their home jerseys. But yeah, again, throw an all-star patch on the side, and then that's
Yeah.
the classic look. That always seemed to be the way they would do it when we were growing up. I feel like it's just a cool way to see, you know, you have Derek Jeter flipping a ball to Dustin Pedroia. You have a Yankee and Red Sox. Those are cool moments that you don't normally get to see, or just Cub Cardinal up the middle combo thing. Like that's the coming togetherness of it, and then the home whites and grays are just very classic too. So
Right, and
yeah,
I mean, even when we were in Little League growing up, like that's how we did it. Like we weren't wearing all star jerseys. Like we were wearing our own uniforms, and
yeah,
we were playing together, but representing our team.
yeah,
So I'm glad that the players have really spoken up about that.
yeah.
That's something they would like to see, and I'm glad that the executives are hearing them and will hopefully listen to them.
Well, that's also how we got these crappy jerseys that we have today with the sweat
Right.
stains and the grays. Yeah, they didn't show them in gray when they featured them last year at the All-Star game, and the players only wore them for 10 minutes in an exhibition game. They didn't wear them all season long or in spring when they were disgusting and small.
Right.
But all right, well, our another All-Star note. It's a White Sox connection kind of. You look up and down this All-Star roster, and you can't help but notice you have Chris Sale pitching. Well, he's not pitching, but he's on the All-Star team. Jose Quintana, Ronaldo Lopez, and now the latest trade rumor is Garrett Crochet. Um, the White Sox just keep repeating this cycle of sell the big arm, get prospects back. Well, now you're what, 10 years removed from the Chris Sale trade,
Yeah.
and these guys are still making the All-Star team. I think Ronaldo Lopez is the
Right.
most
Oh,
recent.
Marcus Semien too. Don't forget about him.
Sure, this more I'm more going the pitching angle with this.
Oh,
But yeah,
got it.
there's littered up and down for many teams, but like those are three, now four, soon to be big arms where you're essentially saying, the White Sox currently don't have enough around Garrett Crochet for him while he's in his prime, and they're probably gonna have to pay him by the time they're good, so they should probably sell him, right? But essentially, you're just restarting the cycle, and of 10 years ago when you have Chris Sale. Jerry Reinsdorf doesn't like to pay pitchers, right? He just likes to move on from them and get as much as he can in return. If you're a White Sox fan and you're seeing all these names across the way or whatever still in the All-Star game, if you're John Schenning, what do you make of that as a team? Because you're basically about to restart that cycle again when you trade Garrett Crochet, right?
Right.
You're not keeping
And
these arms, and they're still pitching well. What are you
yeah,
doing
I
with that?
mean, and they just took another guy. They took the stud lefty out of Arkansas, Hagen Smith, with the fifth overall pick. They took Carlos Rodon a few years ago in the first round out of NC State. He's a can't miss guy, and he's pitched really well at times
Yeah.
over the past several years. So, yeah, I mean, if you're a White Sox fan, it's like, what are we? I think what it comes down to is just obviously like it's poor. Um, I guess, vision when it comes to ownership, but also just poor development too.
Yeah.
They're not really good at developing prospects, and the guys that they do develop, they let go because they're not competitive. These guys they're it's their job, so they're gonna go out there and do the best they can. But if they're not getting the best training, if they're not getting the best development from minor league organizations, if they're not getting the tools they need to thrive, then they're going to go elsewhere and they're going to do well. And because they're still, at the end of the day, a professional athlete. So
Yeah.
I don't know. The White Sox are really just a dumpster fire. And if you're drafted by that organization, of course, like you're getting paid to do what you love. But at the same time, it's like, man, that stings a little bit because
Yeah.
they're not trying to compete. They haven't been.
You're almost expecting as a player to, like, if I do well, I won't be pitching here, and it's
Right.
just kind of uncanny that, again, like, if the Cubs are like, and they're kind of doing this again, like, it's like I don't want to go back into rebuild mode, and every time you sell your big arm for pieces, you're restarting that clock again.
Yeah.
And it's maddening, and you never want the R word. You never want to rebuild. You never want to retool. You never want to be in that phase. And they just seem to be in a constant state of that. And here they are again on the cusp of trading another all-star caliber arm away. And it's like, do you question what the return is going to be? Because now you can look back at the Chris Sale deal and look at Moncada and Kopech and be like, eh. And you can look at the Quintana deal and it's like, Eloy and Cease. Well, Cease is gone. And now I don't know what they got for Ronaldo Lopez, but he's pitching really good for the Braves, and he's a Cy Young candidate.
It's his best year, and they actually got Ronaldo Lopez in a trade. So I think they traded Adam Eaton and got Lopez and Giolito. And Lopez was a very highly rated prospect when at the time of his acquisition, and he didn't pitch too well for the Sox. But I think he's really been nurtured along by the Braves, and he's really showing all of America and all of the baseball community what he can do. Currently has the lowest ERA of any starter in the game. I think he's at 1.78, which is incredible. He's looked really good. His mix looks great. He's on a playoff team, a great organization. So yeah, I mean, again, getting plugged into that right organization, someone who can nurture you and bring you along and really highlight your talent, like, it's so important.
Yeah. Also, the Braves are a ton better defensively, and when you have that behind you, you could pitch with a little more confidence. The
Right.
ballpark down in Atlanta is a little bit bigger. You have more room
Yep.
to work with, but also having a clear, defined role going into a season. Ronaldo Lopez never got that with the White Sox. He was kind of bounced between starter, reliever. They had him closing last year. Like they're like, hey, he's our closer, and then he like wasn't performing well, and at a high ERA, and it's like, oh no, he's gonna go back to starter, and it just, yeah, when you don't define that role for a guy, especially when you have the arm talent he did, it's almost like Hunter Green when he first came up, where he was just kind of getting hit hard, and now he's kind of honed it in and figured it out. Yeah, he's landed in the right organization, and they're going to win a
Yeah.
lot of baseball games.
Right.
And they needed arms from the beginning because they've been hurt. Strider got hurt pretty much right away, so it almost ensured him a spot in the rotation, and he's
Yeah.
definitely take advantage of it with an all-star appearance, for sure. You were hitting on the draft a little bit with the White Sox picking guys. Any further notes? I didn't. You see the draft come and go. I noticed a couple high schools in there in the Illinois area. Other than that, I could not tell you a thing about the prospects. I did not watch a ton of the College World Series, other than knowing who won. Anything stick out to you in terms of anyone drafted, I guess, for the entire
Yeah. Biggest thing is a lot of college talent. I think there were only 3 high schoolers picked in the first round, which a few years ago was kind of the opposite, right? They were trying to focus more on the high school guys because, hey, I can influence their development a little bit more. They're not quite as grown. They don't have the seasoning. But I think as they got to dive into it deeper, it's like, wow, these college programs are essentially like minor league and major league baseball teams the way they run their organization. They have head of baseball operations. They have scouting. They have development. They have trainers, and they have incredible locker rooms and facilities. So when you're getting a guy who is facing some of the best talent in the country, guys throwing in the upper 90s, guys hitting triple digits, they're facing good pitching, they're facing good hitting. You're kind of getting a 3-year stretch mostly of just competitive baseball that you're playing. So it's been cool to see the transition back to the more of the college athlete, and then the best ones kind of shooting their way through the minor leagues quick and getting to the big club. But yeah, lots of really intriguing players, lots of big guys as well. Jack Caglione, who is a 2-way star for Florida, he fell to number 6. He's a first baseman and pitcher, and they're calling him a 2-way star. He fell to Kansas City. That's a cool pick. Charlie Condon, who hit 37 bombs for Georgia this year, he kind of came onto the scene. He's going to Colorado, so he might get to take some cuts with the Rockies in the next couple of years. Nick Kurtz was one of 3 Wake Forest guys drafted in the top 10. He's a big first baseman. Athletics picked him. Mr. Bazana from Oregon State was the number 1 overall pick he was Australia, but went to Oregon State. Cleveland picked him with number 1 overall pick, second baseman with huge power. Got some great arms. Just cool stuff. The Cubs with their first round pick took Cam Smith, who's a third baseman. Big, powerful guy, 6'3", 220, fields his position well, has some pop, has a really strong arm. Cubs, I think, took mostly college players out of their 20. I'm pretty sure they took 18 college guys, lots of different positions. So, yeah, just cool to see the young guys perform. A few weeks ago, after the College World Series wrapped up, I kind of went through and checked out the offenses for A&M and Tennessee, and kind of highlighted how incredible some of these guys are, how developed they are, how much power they have. So, yeah, it's going to be cool to see how the young talent in these last couple draft classes makes its way to the big show. But yeah, I mean, pretty cool. I wish I had watched more college baseball, but cool to kind of keep track of guys, and you only have time in a day, and
it's hard to keep up with. They play so many games so quickly, and then it's over, and then they're in Omaha. I agree with that. I mean, I think the way to build a team and a roster and a farm system is through college age players, because I think they're further along developed, and you're right, sometimes they might have worse habits, but you're also going to know a lot sooner whether these guys are major league caliber players or not. When you draft a kid out of high school, you're 8 years away sometimes from figuring it out. If he's 18 and he doesn't make it to the show till he's 25, like Bryce Durang did, you're waiting 7-8 years to see what he has, and that's a long time for an organization to draft a guy, and then where's my organization going to be in 9 seasons from now? It's like, who knows? So I think when you do draft college players and exclusively college players, you're getting a little more of a finished product. And they, are, again, they're further along, especially pitchers. That's why you see them kind of shoot through. Crochet was one of those guys. He was pitching for Tennessee, and then in the fall he's pitching for the White Sox. He went right through. Skeens is another one most recently, but like you see these pitchers ready to go from day one almost. They're shooting through the minor leagues, whereas you draft a high school kid, he's going to take a long time to get there, and he's no way he's going to be ready to face. If he's a hitter, major league pitching, and if he's a pitcher, face major league hitting, from an early age is pretty rare.
Yeah, and obviously the first round draft picks, they're the ones that people highlight and focus on. They're the highest graded. When you go back through the years, it's interesting to see how many of those first round picks actually made it up.
Yeah, not many.
But looking at the top 10, kind of getting back to your point, when it comes to pitching, the Reds took, I believe his name is Chase Burns, out of Wake Forest. And this guy has got a nasty slider, nasty curveball. He can hit triple digits. I wouldn't be surprised if he was kind of on like a Skeens type track as far as being with the Reds shortly. Maybe not next year, but the year after. We'll have to see how his development goes. But yeah, he was an intriguing pick. And then the Cardinals actually took J.J. Weatherholt, who is a shortstop out of West Virginia. Some consider him to be the best pure hitter in the draft. And with them already having Mason Wynn, having that combo up the middle, like he's a really good defender. Mason Wynn is really good, and Weatherholt is really good. So that could be a really good Cardinals just doing Cardinal things again.
Mason Wynn, again, and that's funny because, he's been a surprise, I would say, this first half. And we knew about the arm, but you always wonder, is the hitting going to catch up with the arm? Well,
he's good.
He's been very consistent at the plate. He's kind of kept Brandon Crawford off the field, honestly. I thought he was going to be teaching him how to play shortstop. I think he's doing it from a provisional standpoint where it's just, watch and critique, because he doesn't need any help with his arm, and it's certainly not Brandon Crawford with the bat. So.
His defensive metrics are also off the charts. It's not just the arm. He is making the plays. He is impressive. And it's not a Cardinal fan, but I'm a Mason Wynn fan. I like watching him play. He's fun.
He's done some crazy stuff. When you stop broadcast, be like, whoa. Yeah, that's Again, he's made some, questionable throws too, but he'll rein it in for sure.
He will.
Right, well, first half, I guess, awards we'll go into. MVP, we kind of talked last time about, Gunnar Henderson. I won't use that name this time. But, first half MVPs, AL, NL, wherever you want to start.
Yeah, let's start with AL. I'm still really team Gunnar for sure. For me, it's his award to lose, but I think he's gonna need to keep the production up because Aaron Judge isn't going anywhere. He's not. He's going to continue to rake as long as he stays healthy. But in the same breath, I don't know if you remember my preseason pick for MVP, but I said Bobby Witt Jr. and Bobby is also right there. Bobby's hitting 323, and he's doing about the same things that Gunnar's doing. A little bit less power, but not by much. He's playing a really good shortstop. His metrics are up there defensively. The Royals are still very much in the chase for the division. They're not that far back. They're definitely in the playoff hunt. So he's another guy. Juan Soto also is looming. He's been a big, huge hit for New York. And then the guy we just mentioned not that long ago, first-time All-Star, Jarren Duran. Jarren Duran is powering that Boston offense, and he is one of the most dynamic players in this game right now. So the Red Sox continue to surge, and Jarren continues to do Jarren things. he's must watch baseball. So he's another guy for me who sneaks into there. So
Yeah.
lots of fun guys in the AL for sure.
Yeah. So sentiment is Gunner. I think the most likely it will be if he continues on his pace, it will be Aaron Judge. But the question is not who is who's yours. Jose Ramirez for me will be first. He has matched his 2023 home run total at the. I know we're a little bit past midway, but he has 24 home runs already. And the
Yeah.
way he does it is different from other guys. He's not, hitting these 500-foot moonshots. He's just a really good hitter who hits home runs. He's a really good defender. He's really good at third base. And I think the Guardians, sorry, I almost said the Indians, they feed off him. And when you look at MVP, I think that's what that is the most valuable player to their team. And I think if you remove Jose Ramirez from the Indians, sorry, did it again. If you remove him from the Cleveland baseball team, they're completely different. I think they all go around him. So for me, AL would be J-Ram.
Yeah, and they're in first place by 4.5 games, and they just picked number one overall. So nobody expected the Cleveland Guardians to be in first place at the All-Star break.
No.
You finally get Bieber back, and he pitched really well, and then he went down. So the fact that they've been able to do this, and not to say that it's all Ramirez. They have some really, really solid players. Stephen Kwan is a wonderful player. David Fry's having a really nice year.
They have 3 All-Stars.
They have 3 All-Stars.
Ramirez, yeah.
Jimenez is another guy. I will also, I don't want to say this guy because I'm going to save him for another part of the segment. But Cleveland is not supposed to be where they're at right now. And the reason they are mostly is because of J-Ram, his leadership, and his just overall ability. The guy is a bulldog, and he is must-watch baseball as well. Very deserving. That's a good pick for AL MVP. That's awesome.
They're a complete baseball team for sure.
Yeah.
What about NL?
NL, the obvious pick, and it'll probably be this guy anyways, is Ohtani. Obviously, he's doing all the Ohtani things. He will probably be a 40-40 guy. He's hitting 316, so that's a career high for him. What takes away from that is that all he does is hit. He doesn't have no defense of contribution at all, no pitching contribution at all. He's the obvious pick, but he's not my pick. I think if his team continues to rise, his position on this team is also very important. I'm going to say Ketel Marte. He is having a really, really underrated season, and it's funny to say that when he's the starting second baseman for the NL on the All-Star game. But Ketel Marte is hitting at an elite level. He's hitting for power. He's not striking out as much. He's walking a little bit more than he used to. The defense has been next level. He's right up there with Bryce Terang as far as all those defensive metrics, the important ones, the range, the defensive runs saved, defensive WAR, all that stuff. He's doing really special things. He's driving in runs. I think he's hitting leadoff for that Arizona offense, and Arizona's starting to surge a little bit. They crept to a game over 500. They're starting to get healthy. To me, Marte is a little bit of a kind of under the radar guy, but I think that he very much deserves to be in that conversation because of his all around ability.
Yeah, I think I'm going to surprise again. Just with the way I normally go. I think the last couple of years he's just been so unhealthy and trying to get back to form that Christian Yelich really has come on, and he's starting to get back to that point where you dread him coming up to the plate and you start to pitch around him. He's hitting 322, I think, right now. I mean, just I think he has the caliber to get back there. And a couple years ago, we were
Yeah.
kind of making fun of him because he, had no power and whatever. But like, I think he just legit didn't have his legs under him. Guy cracked his
Right.
kneecap 3 years ago. So
Hmm.
it's I wouldn't say it's nice to see him back in form, but
It is though.
it is because he's a dynamic player. I wish the Cubs would have made that trade with the Marlins. Um, yeah, he's performing well. He's back in the All Star game, which I didn't think was going to happen, and he's right back in the middle. He's the reason why I think the Brewers are where they're at in terms of their line, because really they haven't changed much, and they're just executing the same game plan, even though Craig Counsell isn't there anymore. And he is the reason why, especially with everything else that has not gone well for them. They have no starting pitching because they all just keep getting hurt. They lost Evan Williams early in the year. He looks like he's coming back. He just actually pitched for the T-Rats this
Yep.
last Sunday. So yeah, they're basically their acquisitions at the trade deadline are going to be get healthy.
Yep.
But yeah, and look for Christian Yelich to probably hit a lot more homers and just be his former MVP self.
He's one of my favorite players in the game, and he always has been. I've always been a big Yelich guy, even before all the stuff, even when he was with the Marlins. Always just liked who he was as a guy, and who he is as an all-around player. He is an absolute baller in Milwaukee. In a football state, he is. You see Yelich jerseys all over that ballpark. They love the guy. He's the man in Milwaukee, and it's great to see him getting back on track, and performing at that MVP type level. And they would not. You're very right. They would not be where they are without him. And he's getting after it.
Yep. All right. Cy Youngs.
AL for me is pretty obvious. And I said it going into the season. It's Tariq Skubal for the Tigers. He is just nasty, and he throws gas. He is. I think he's thrown about 120 innings, like 116. He's 10-3, 140 strikeouts, which I believe is second in the AL to Crochet. Crochet's at like 150. He's got a sub 1 WHIP. 0.88 WHIP and a 2.41 ERA. He doesn't walk guys. I think he's got about a 10 to 1 strikeout to walk ratio. Just doing everything that you need to do. The Tigers have also been playing pretty good baseball in the last 10 games, starting to creep back into the fold a little bit, but he has been absolutely dominant. I don't think that if he continues on this pace, maybe wins 18 or 19 games, I don't see where there's any way anyone can catch him, and that's with guys like Corbin Burns in the fold, guys like Seth Lugo having a career year, Tanner Houck's having a great year, and I dare say even Emmanuel Clase will be in the Cy Young conversation. He has been nuts.
Yeah.
He's got like a 0.68 WHIP. He's got a 0.88 ERA, gassing people up. He comes in save situations, non-save situations. He's always on. He throws a 102-mile-an-hour fastball, like a 100-mile-an-hour cutter, and he's got a 90-mile-an-hour slider. Like he will definitely get some votes for AL Cy Young. But yeah, Skubal's been pretty special this year.
And what's crazy is Clase was a name that at the beginning of the year was rumored to the Cubs.
Oh,
which you're not going to get him now.
No, because they're good.
Yeah, they're good. For me is Corbin Burns. I mean, that's probably the one guy I've been keeping track of because he's a former Brewer, and I like rubbing it in their face a little bit. But yeah, he's got low 2s ERA. He pitched very well against the Cubs the other night. Just didn't get a lot of run support because the Cubs swept him out of town. But yeah, he's been himself. He's been his, reigning NL Cy Young self. Just pitching deep into games, 7 innings, and low ERA, a lot of strikeouts. He made a really athletic play off the mound, so he's healthy at this point in the season. I think the Brewers.
He's got a great defense behind him now.
Yeah, the Brewers are going to.
Okay.
Well, the Brewers were the best defensive team last
year. They were the
year,
best. Yeah.
By the metric.
They were the best
standpoint.
Yeah.
But
they were.
I think Milwaukee's going to miss having that ace when they get to the playoffs because Freddie Peralta doesn't strike that confidence. And you know what? even on his best game, Freddie Peralta goes 6 innings, and he's done
Yeah.
because he's at 97 pitches. So,
Yeah. He walks guys.
yeah, I think that's another test of what. And I know the Brewers got a little bit of a haul back from Baltimore on this, but I think the true test is what are the Brewers missing? The starting pitching. Who they give up? One of the best starting pitchers in the American League. So,
yeah,
very telling.
Elected to his 4th All-Star game.
Yeah,
no big deal.
Yeah, and warranted. I know for me, I think you can go any pitcher on the Phillies staff is fine. I'm gonna go with Chris Sale, who was also supposed to start the All-Star game tonight, but was given the nod. There you go, Chris Sale. He's 12-1. Hard to argue with what he's doing. We always like to see these guys kind of return to form. I think he said he was frustrated with his Red Sox years because he was hurt so much. And it's just nice to see him be healthy, pitch well, and again, pitch for another good organization that's ready to win. And he has certainly stepped up to the plate.
13-3. He's 13-3.
13-3. Okay.
Yeah, so 13 wins already. 140 strikeouts and about 110 innings, which is unreal. 24 walks, which again has never been a free pass guy, but just pounding the strike zone.
That's I mean, you cannot be a walk guy, but in 110 innings to have that's an insane stat.
It's disgusting. And then a sub 1 whip. I think his whip is like 0.95. Yep. 10 quality starts out of his like 17, 16, 17, 18 starts that he has. So pitching on a good team, good organization. It's good to see him healthy.
Well, for people that don't understand whip, I mean, essentially that means you're allowing less than 1 base runner an inning. Or one base. If you have a 1 point whatever whip, you're allowing 1 walk or hit. Like that's a little absurd.
Which is not leading to that's not leading to many runs, is it?
No. When nobody gets on base, no one can score. So I think Carlos Marmol, when he had that closer season, definitely had at least a 2-something whip, which means he was putting at least 2 guys on every single time.
Yeah. I would agree with you. Sale would also be my guy, but in the team photo, Ronaldo Lopez for sure. Pitching really well, best season as a pro. Any of the Phillies, you look at Wheeler, Nola, who's the kid? Christian Vasquez. I think it's Vasquez. No, it's not Vasquez. It's like Hernandez. Christian Hernandez or something. For Philly, he's good.
Yeah.
Yes. And also Mr. Skeens. I just don't know if he'll get the starts to be a Cy Young, but I don't know, man. If he pitches 160 innings and strikes out 280 guys and has an ERA in the low 2s and Pittsburgh's kind of in it, he's been the most dominant guy since he came in. And he's got the stats to be an all-star. So
if he continues to pitch the way he's pitching the rest of the year and does not get shut down, I wouldn't argue with that.
Right.
He does.
But to me, why would you shut him down? So he got drafted last year. He's been I don't want to say babied, but like he's been brought along slowly in the minors. He wasn't throwing a lot of innings. He's throwing. You're 22 years old. Like, let's get out there and pitch. What are we waiting for?
You shut him down if you are not in the race. Let's
say
if Pittsburgh's out of it. You shut him down because the kid has never pitched this many innings in his life.
Right.
That's why you shut him down. You don't shut him down because you're worried about him being fragile. You know, just as everyone knows, there's so many bullets in that arm. Nolan Ryan had, 5,000 innings in his arm. But at some point you run out of bullets and the velocity goes down, whatever. He's a big kid. He probably has a few more. But you don't waste those on meaningless baseball. I know it's bad for the sport, but you know what's good for the sport then for the Pirates? Be in the pennant race.
Right.
Make this guy pitch in meaningful baseball games. Because, you're going to have an impossible decision to make if you're in September in the thick of a race and you're like, well, Paul Skeens is at 170 innings, and we didn't want him to pitch 175. Well, you're gonna shut him down. You're
Yeah.
gonna not pitch him in that playoff game. Don't tell me that. Like, no, get
No.
that kid out there. But if you're out of it, that's the only scenario I see where they say, hey, take a seat. You're good. You did your job. Appreciate it. Thanks for the ticket sales. Go hang out with your girlfriend and, call it a day.
Yes.
But, all right. Rookie of the year, I know it's kind of obvious, but, I think I'll make the argument for Shota. If he continues, we'll see. Again, we'll see. Summers in Chicago can be brutal. I think, again, the obvious pick is Paul Skeens because he is a rookie.
Right.
But you made a good point before we started live that there is a lot of rookies out there
Right.
for the picking. But I would argue that Shota has been just as valuable.
Right.
And he's been a surprise. But he should get a little bit of recognition. I don't think he'll get the vote in the NL.
Yeah.
But I think that's plausible.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, Shota and Skeens, if they continue to pitch well and do well, should be the front runners. But I mean, there's lots of really, really nice players. Gavin Stone for the Dodgers is another pitcher, really under the radar. He's pitched really well. He's probably been their most consistent arm, to be honest. Has been healthy. On the position player side of things, Michael Busch has done really well for the Cubs. He's played an excellent first base. Jackson Merrill has played an excellent center field and done really well at the plate for San Diego. And then Mr. Wynn has been the starting shortstop on one of the hottest teams in baseball. He has been putting on for the Cardinals, been hitting leadoff. He's done everything they've asked him to do. So the NL, man, I mean, it looks to be a two-horse race, but you could really make a case for any of the guys that I just listed.
It's funny because some years you go through Rookie of the Year, baseball's tough because, again, there may be no rookies, right? Some years Chris Coughlin wins, you know? And it's like, okay, well, someone's got to win the award. And this year it's just you have a lot of good rookie and or first-year players. Again, Shota Imanaga's 30 years old, right? Like, he's not really a rookie, but he is. But then you have a very clear and obvious, Paul Skeens will win the award. That's just not, he's just been that dynamic. So it's just funny how that works because, NFL, there's always rookies. Every year you have new guys coming through. NBA, same thing. But MLB is not always as defined, but this is just a really good rookie class. It's good for baseball. It's good to see some young talent come through and some new talent for sure.
Yeah, and then in the AL, not as stacked as the NL when it comes to rookies, but obviously Mason Miller is still considered a rookie. He's he's a front runner. Wyatt Langford is playing really well. Texas is starting to pick it up a little bit, so those guys are for sure in the running. And then Colton Cowser's done really well for the Orioles, who are the best team in the AL. So
is the guy for the Twins, Miranda? Is he technically a rookie?
I didn't see that he was.
Having a hot start.
He's having a hot start, and I snagged him in fantasy, and then he went on the IL. Okay. Typical. So, but yeah, there's some guys. I don't know if Miranda's technically considered a rookie, but yeah, if he is, he has done really well. Yeah, and the Twins have done really well.
I would agree. The AL is not as much action on that end.
Right.
Also, the Reds have an outfielder they just brought up too, who's been really hot. But again, small sample size.
Oh, Reese Hines?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, small sample size.
Right.
More to watch, but I think the NL is pretty much defined. AL might be a Chris Coughlin type situation. Again, maybe not as defined out there.
Yeah. So I mean, wrapping this segment up, kind of. First half is done. Going into the second half. Division races. There are some that are really tight. There are some that are a little bit wider gap, wider margin. Who are you looking to kind of continue to separate, and who's making some moves as far as in the divisional race? Not necessarily moves. We'll go into the player moves in a second, but who's looking good to you? Who's surging?
I mean, the hottest team going into the break is the Cubs, right? They have the best record over the last 10 for sure. I don't think they're surging, but I think the way the playoffs are set up, almost every team is still in it. unless you're again the
Right.
White Sox or the Rockies, who kind of established are done.
And the
Um,
Athletics.
well, yeah, yeah, but then they just beat the best team in baseball, so it's tough. Um, yeah, it's interesting because you've seen the Orioles stumble a little bit on the AL side, as well as the Yankees are kind of coming back to earth, and then the NL side, you've seen the Mets kind of like resurge, and like now they're in
Right.
the race. I don't know.
And the Astros. The Astros are a game out of first.
Yeah,
They're a game out.
Astros are back in it. I still think the NL Central though is just the most interesting race out there. I
Right.
think because of the lack of star power from the
Yeah.
Brewers, and the lack of confidence in what their abilities are, and just top to bottom, I mean, the Cubs are in last place still, and they're tied with the Reds and the Pirates, but like it's just so clumped together.
Yeah.
There's no clear like this team is so much better than that team, right?
Right.
They're so clumped together. So I think that will play out as being the most interesting race. I don't think it's a division that's going to yield multiple teams making, maybe two teams make it out of the Central. But yeah, it's just interesting. Also, the AL Central is equally as interesting in the top three. You have three teams that are all right there with
Hmm.
Kansas City, Minnesota, and the Guardians. So
Yeah.
those are the two, I think, again, proximity wise, we kind of have the most interest in, but they're also the tightest races with the least amount of variance top to
Yeah.
bottom.
I think the AL West is going to be pretty wild as well, um, because Texas is 7-3 in their last 10,
Yep.
and they're creeping up.
And Mariner's
Houston
going to
came,
Mariner.
yeah, Houston came all the way from the depths, get to the All Star break. They're one behind the Mariners. The Mariners have coasted, and I think the only reason that they're not in a better spot is because their offense is terrible.
Yes,
They can't hit.
they have
They
the
can't hit at
worst.
all. So
They're
I
competing with the Cubs for like the worst batting average in baseball.
and they're a head below the Cubs. Like they're so bad on the offensive end. Their team batting average is like 220 or something. It's really really bad. Or it's not good at all. So yeah, these pitchers, like we talk about bullets in the arm. Like how many times these three or four dudes going to go out there and just ball and then they get nothing?
Yeah, yeah.
He's
Logan
going to get
Gilbert's
old
been
after a
really
while.
special, but yeah, it's just
Kirby, yeah, Kirby. George Kirby he kind of had a rough start, but he's down to like a 3.2 ERA.
yep.
Castillo's starting to find it a little bit. Yeah, you got Gilbert and Bryce Miller. Their bullpen's been really good. Yeah, it's the offense. So I would very much. It's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a three-legged race between the former champs,
Yeah.
the Mariners and the Stros.
Again, I wouldn't be shocked if Mariners fans probably hate to hear it, but like I would not be shocked if they finished third in that division and missed the playoffs because
Yeah,
Houston and Texas are obviously well seasoned and they're not just going
and
to
they can hit, and they can hit.
can hit. So yeah, and Adolis Garcia hasn't even really got going. So
No,
yeah,
Texas to me is scary because
they're just starting.
they're just starting and they're going to be getting people back,
Yeah.
and yeah, so
Yeah, in
we'll
terms
see.
of
It'll be fun.
moves, like I said, so we're creeping up in the trade deadline too. I feel like with so many teams still involved in the races,
It's
you're
not going to be very
not gonna be
active.
very active.
No.
The one move I've heard for the Cubs is a name that we mentioned 3 or 4 weeks ago before they got Nito was Danny Jansen,
Yeah,
and that's like, it's not really exciting, but so many teams are just waiting and seeing, and they're looking to add. So
Right.
I think with this, added. I think what you do is, since you have so many teams making the playoffs now with the expanded wild card, you should move the trade deadline back to August, right?
Mhm.
Maybe mid-August. Start there. I think there's too many teams that are still in it, and also you want teams in it longer, right? That's better for
Right.
baseball to have competitive baseball at least through August instead of having teams sell off in July. So this is what baseball wants. I think you need to take part two of this action and move the trade deadline back to
Yeah.
at least the end of August. So that gives you a month of meaningless baseball then if you're, a Reds fan that, they just got swept up in the race. Okay, cool. But most teams are not going to sell. Like you have the Giants who are on the cusp. They're right
They're
there.
not doing it.
They're ahead of the Cubs. Like why would they sell? And then the Cubs are, they're surging. Okay, why would they sell? no one's in a position where they're like they want to give up on their season quite yet.
Yeah, Arizona's not going to sell. The Mets aren't going to sell.
No.
I think that a team that is kind of on the cusp of not being in it, that has the most talent to give up, would be Toronto.
Yes.
Toronto, I think, is looking at the team, like, in literally every team ahead of them. Even the Rays.
Toronto
Looking at all those teams.
Horrible spot. Yeah, you're right.
Right.
4 teams ahead of them that are all really
Yeah.
good.
They're all really good, and you have assets who you could get a lot for.
Yeah.
So aside from some of the bottom feeders, like I'm sure that the Marlins will probably trade their closer. They'll probably try to part with Jazz if they can, because they can get top guys. The White Sox, I heard Robert might be staying put, but Crochet will get a ton from somebody.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's not a lot of guys who are really on the move. Like even the Rockies, like Ryan McMahon is having his best overall season, and they kind of just mentioned to him like, "Hey, we're not interested in trading you," and he's like, "Cool, all right, I'll stay put." So that was one of the Rocky guys. So maybe another guy, Tyler Anderson, for the Angels. He's an all-star for the second time in 3 years. The Angels aren't really going anywhere. They could probably get something for him. I've heard Isaac Paredes, the third baseman for the Rays, because they have Caminero, their third baseman, kind of shooting through the minor leagues. He might be a guy they could trade a bat. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't think that there's going to be a lot of teams who are going to be dealing talent, because they're all in it.
Advice to any team out there: if you're trading with the Rays, per the graphic that Ryan sent me earlier today.
Oh yeah, no.
Lose that trade.
Right.
So if they're willing to part with a guy, just know they're going to hose you, and just be okay with it. Because every guy they acquire, it's either, even when they trade a guy like Glasnow or let him walk, it's like they've already gotten their use out of him.
Right.
No, why don't you pay him money? But it's ridiculous. Yandy Diaz was on. He's a 13 WAR. Again, I don't like WAR, but he's a 13 WAR player. And you know what? They lose a couple. Like Willie Adames has been good for the Brewers, but
right.
They don't lose many. So if they're
willing
to get rid of a guy,
not like you can't predict what happened to Wander Franco. You get rid of Adames because Wander Franco's coming, and that happened. So, but dude, Yandy Diaz, Harold Ramirez, Pete Fairbanks, Isaac Paredes. The guys, the players they got Glasnow for Archer. They traded Archer and got Glasnow, and they leveraged all that stuff. So yeah, it's wild. They just are they're a great organization, and Glass has been coming up a lot recently on different shows that I've been watching. He was on Chris Rose's show not that long ago. He's on Digging Deep not that long ago. Cool cat, fun to listen to, but listening to him talk about his time in Tampa and just how relaxed of a clubhouse it was and how professional it was at the same time, it's cool. And yeah, that's why they succeed. That's why they've been one of the best teams in baseball for the last 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Again, I would have no confidence. Or same, there's plenty of organizations like that. Like they say, don't trade with the Philadelphia Eagles, stuff like that. Yeah, just, there's certain teams that know what they're doing. And you need a player, but they know down the road they're going to get the best of it, and that just seems to constantly work in their favor.
Absolutely.
But they're also not overpaying for people, so
right,
that helps them out. But all right, well, when we get back at this again, we will probably have a couple moves. Again, we're kind of murky on it, so I don't think.
Do we want to talk about the Cubs at all before we sign off? Do we want to talk about the Cubs?
Let's have a good night.
This is good. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. They're playing good baseball.
They're kind of hitting that stride again when they need to, which I think is important.
And again, 3 series. You don't lose any of those series. They swept the best team in baseball, which the best team in the American League, which I feel like there was some kind of graphic that had never been done by the team before. They put a hurting on Baltimore, like
Yeah, no,
completely shut them down.
they outclassed them, which was shocking.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I'm encouraged by what I've seen.
Yeah.
Ian Happ was really impressive for the last month and a half.
Yeah.
Seriously, they would not be where they are without Ian Happ. And
Yeah.
Michael Bush doing really well, and that starting pitching has just been phenomenal.
Michael Bush had
Justin
his
Steele,
first 4-hit game the other night. Like, yeah, that's there, and this is all coming in the wake of Cody Bellinger fracturing his finger. So it's not that you ever want to lose a Cody Bellinger, but maybe that's the kickstart they need to, like, hey, look, this whole lineup needs a hit, not just one or two guys, and then hopefully when you get him back, you're in a better place. I think that also cements too, like, you can't trade a guy when he's hurt, so that kind of forces them to stand pat at least at a minimum.
right?
But yeah, this stretch they were on before the break. Again, hopefully it continues. You don't have many guys at the All-Star game. You have Shota, and that was it. So everyone else can relax. Hopefully, Dansby had a couple multi-hit games. I know he's turning into your
a few. I want him. I want him to do well.
Yeah.
I love him. I love watching him play.
Yeah.
But they're paying him a lot of money to not do anything on the offensive end. So they need him. He's in a spot in the lineup where there's not a lot. Obviously, like in Major League Baseball, there's pressure everywhere you go because it's Major League Baseball. But when you're hitting 7 on a team, they're not really relying on you. So continue to perform, discover your stroke, get your stroke back, whatever, in that 7 spot. But I don't know. Those averages are just starting to creep up for a lot of guys. I mean, Seiya and Cody are around 270. Bush is 270. Nico's starting to creep up in the 260s.
Yes. Yeah.
Ian Happ is starting to creep up in the 250s. I think he's at 246. He drove in 33 runs in the last month and a half. He hit about 10 homers.
And this tracks kind of what Carter Hawkins was saying a while ago about the back of the baseball card. They're going to find their way back to the median eventually. It just took a long time. And again, this better late than never. I feel like it's bound to happen because eventually you're going to get your hits, right? But they dug themselves into a hole, and you're still a couple games under 500, and you're still 3.5 games out of wild card with a ton of teams in between you. So it may be too late. You don't know because you officially aren't really you need some teams to lose some games too. You can win a lot of games, but you need some teams to lose now. You don't really control you need the Brewers to collapse. Is what you need to take that division.
Luckily, I don't know if I want to say this. Luckily or unluckily for them, coming out of the break, they play Arizona, who's ahead of them. They play Milwaukee, who's ahead of them. They play a lot of they play St. Louis again, who's ahead of them. They play the Reds, who are at the same level as them. They have a really tough schedule coming out of the break, so I think winning these games and beating the teams that are ahead of them, they can control their own destiny in this sense. So, like I said last year, and they were doing it, just focus on winning a series at a time. Mm-hmm. Your starting pitching has been doing the job. Javier Assad was activated right before the break, threw a couple innings. So they got a solid top 4. Not great news when it comes to Wicks and Brown. They're not progressing as well as they'd like to. So I don't know if they're going to be grabbing someone or Kyle Hendricks is going to be the 5th guy. He's been doing it more often than not lately. So maybe he can be that 5. But I'm not worried about the pitching. The bullpen has been doing a lot better. Hopefully they'll be getting some more arms back too. But they got to hit. Yeah, got to come down to hitting.
Yep, and they have been the last couple of games. Like I said, they torched Baltimore. Some of those easy wins that we're talking about where, you're not relying on a high leverage bullpen situation to win you a game.
Right. And they pound the last game against Philly, they pounded Christian Hernandez. I think his name's Christian Hernandez, who is pitching really, really well. So they pounded him, took care of business against the Angels, pounded Baltimore, and St. Louis. They should have won the series.
Should have done more with that, but we'll take a split. I mean, again, just a bad day on Saturday, but we've seen worse. We've done worse.
I've seen worse.
Yeah, they should have won at least 3 of those 4. It's unfortunate. Also, Hayden Wisniewski should have had like 10 earned runs. When you
Right.
make 2 errors on yourself, those should be earned. But
Right.
can't, beggars can't be choosers on that.
Right.
That can be a different. Yeah, if a pitcher makes an error, it's an earned run. Because then
Right.
I would go out there and throw the ball everywhere, and then my ERA would just look spotless.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will see what the next week's bring. Hopefully they, again, get rested up, recharged, and then go into this next stretch. Very important stretch, focused, ready to go. And we're talking about a team that's acquiring and not moving on,
Yeah.
especially coming out of the break. But all right. Well, until next time, boots come in pairs. Take it easy.
Peace.